Welcome back to the Mastering Sales and Negotiation podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Massey. This week on the podcast, we spoke with Will Ockenden, owner and managing director of Prohibition PR. We discussed how training with our in-house Huthwaite expert, Robin Hoyle, helped Will's agency to overhaul the way it presented to clients and supercharged their success rates when pitching to clients. Today, I'm joined by Robin to discuss key takeaways from our conversation when it comes to creating and delivering persuasive presentations in a complex B2B sale. So what makes Robin such an expert, you might ask? Well, he's very well known in the L&D industry, addresses leaders all over the world at conferences and summits, and is the author of 2 books around learning culture, and has walked in sales director shoes himself. So suffice to say, he knows his stuff. So, Robin, one of the things that we spoke to Will about was how agencies can move from more of a service-focused approach to a solution-oriented approach in B2B sales. What role do you think understanding the client's true challenges play in that sort of shift?
Well, I mean, it was a great conversation, wasn't it? And I thought it was particularly enlightening that Will was talking about all the challenges that we see in other industries as well. It's not just within, PR agencies or creative businesses in that sense, which is the idea that you get into the nitty-gritty, the detail of what you do without necessarily focusing on what impact that has or what the results or the outcomes are that you're aiming for. And therefore, it's very easy to do something which I've mentioned in numerous different environments, which is that we measure the things which can be easily measured, and we give that importance rather than actually measuring the things that are really important. And the really important thing is, well, what does it do for me? What does it do from this organisation that I've sold things for? And I thought it was very enlightening when Will talks about working with that legal firm where he was trying to get them to be able to improve the pipeline of recruits coming through to the organisation, but they weren't coming to Leeds because they were going to London. And so even though this might have been the greatest legal firm in the world, the key priority of those was, well, we want to work for a company that's well known, it's in London, it's all the rest of it. And so actually we're creating a better brand for that law firm in terms of how it relates to the rest of the legal industry, how it relates to the profession, how it attracts people in, how it makes people think that actually this is a great career move for them. Mm-hmm. That was the outcome, not how many social media posts and how many press releases and how many stories are we going to tell and how many profiles of our partners are we going to get in the local.
How are we going to go about doing that?
In legal papers. Yeah, exactly. That how we do it rather than what we do diverts attention away from the really important stuff. Mm. And so starting from that perspective of this is what we are aiming to achieve enables you to be very flexible about the means that you use and to discuss and negotiate and change and adapt and meet the requirements of the company rather than being tied into some kind of solution that actually, when it comes to reality, might not be quite fit for purpose. Because that way it says, well, you said you were going to do this and now you're only doing this or you're doing something else as well. Feels like you're defending the strategy you came up with rather than keeping everybody focused on this is what we need to achieve and we will do what it takes to get there. And that's really important.
And I think in those creative industries, it's even harder for them to do that because you do jump to solution first because you're so excited about what potentially you could do.
Yeah, absolutely. And very often quite detailed solutions. So you talk about this execution rather than necessarily talking about the strategy or talking about what the overall goal is. And yeah, the execution is important. You need to do both.
Yeah.
But you need to do the execution. You need to excite people with the imagery and the way that you place things and the new ideas that you've got about attracting attention to the brand and to the organization. You need to do that within the context of this is the overall aim, not separate from, because otherwise it's all bells and whistles and no substance.
No substance. What do you think other agencies, so PR, brand marketing, what can they do to try and become more solution orientated? What would you say? Where's the start point for them?
I think first and foremost, every agency, every organizer, every creative business will at some point have had to pitch for that business. They will have had to make a presentation or put a proposal together to a client or potential client and say, this is what we are, what we can do. So start with some of the old ones, some of the things that you've done. I'm not talking about going back years and years and years, but things you've done in the last, say, 6 or 8 months. And look at all of those and then strike out and delete every comment which talks about you as an agency or you as a business.
Yeah.
Start from there. Now, I don't say throw it away. I just mean take it out of that presentation, that proposal, and then look at what you're left with. And once you elevate that to being the stuff which is most important, because that's going to be the thing about the customer, about what the customer requires, about what the client needs are, about what the goals and the aims and the vision and the mission is. That's about your customer and your client, not about you. And then you put you back in where it supports the solution that you are providing.
This is why we're the best person to do these things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're actually then putting that in the right place. So you're saying, look, customer, client, this is about you, and here's where we help, and here's the proof of why we're the best. And that stuff that most agencies, most organizations lead with about we're the best because fits there, not at the front.
Not at the front end.
When you've said, you need this, you require this, you want somebody who can do these things for you, boof, and here we are. Makes much more impact, makes much more sense, and actually means you don't bore the hell out of people. Because quite a lot of time I've been presented to, you've been presented to, we've all been sold to.
Going through a load of slides of stuff that you already know.
And here's why we have managed to win 40 billion in private equity investment and venture capital interest in our business over the course of the next 12 years mean that we are now capitalised at 76 billion. I couldn't care less.
We get it, Robin.
Okay.
The last thing I think that we sort of talked about is why is sales often viewed so negatively in the creative industries, and how can a more sort of structured, client-focused approach, how can we overcome that perception?
Well, the dirty little secret, isn't it? That somebody somewhere has to actually send a purchase order and money changes hands. Yeah, we know. Actually, there's a kind of old-fashioned view around sales there, which is infecting certain industries. And it's not just the creative industries. There are other businesses and other organizations that also have a bit of a kind of slightly uncomfortable relationship with it. The sales role is not transactional. It's not kind of do this, sign order, that's it, there you go. That's it. Sales is a creative process very often.
Yeah.
It's also a professional process because there's got to be integrity. There's got to be making a promise and sticking to it. There's got to be all that honesty around what it is that you do and how you do business. The best organizations know that and they get it. And actually, there are rules about the way in which you do things. When you start to engage with an organization and uncover what it is that they really need, what makes them tick, what their challenges are, what their requirements are, then you start to create a kind of picture of that organization. And yeah, there are rules around that. And sometimes creative people think, oh yeah, it's very transactional, it's rules. It's not giving me a chance to be free and to express myself. Well, one of the most expressive art forms, the creative media, which is probably more expressive than just about any other, is music. Music has 5 lines and 4 spaces, and it gave us Mozart and it gave us Motorhead. If you are constrained by rules into being uncreative, then actually you're not very creative at all, because real creativity lives within a set of rules, lives within a set of boundaries, and then exploits your mastery of that in a way which is unforeseen, exciting, innovative, interesting, different.
Yeah.
That's where it works on. I used to show people a picture painted by, a very realistic picture painted by somebody when they were 16, 17 years old. It was immaculate and super realistic. That artist was Pablo Picasso. Mastering the rules at the age of 16 to produce a magnificent likeness of an individual meant that when he was in his 30s and 40s and 50s, he could break them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he'd mastered them first.
Yeah.
And that's what I say to creative people, which is 5 lines, 4 spaces, gave us all of this. Try it. But sometimes you've got to do your scales.
Agreed. Thanks very much, Robin.
Not at all. This was a bonus issue of Mastering Sales and Negotiation podcast. We've been talking and reflecting on our conversation with Will Ockenden of Prohibition PR, and we'll be reflecting on some of our other conversations in the future. So make sure you subscribe and make sure you don't miss any of these episodes. Thanks for listening.